Hey Palpatine,
Yes.
how many pizzas should we order for our company picnic?
I don't know.
Order 66.
God.
God dang.
My name is Cameron Haug, and this is Escape Podcast.
I'm Zach Fielder.
And today, Justin unfortunately will not be with us for the next month or so. He got dispatched to a
Fort Lost in the Woods.
Lost in the Woods, right? For the Army. So, in supplementation, we have a guest star. Her name is Angel Mertens. She has seen all 7 films, Clone Wars Rebels, and has read the Ahsoka novel. Her favorite Star Wars film is, of course, Star Wars, and her favorite lightsaber battle is on Mustafar. Welcome to the show, Angel.
Yay.
Hi guys.
How you doing?
Hello.
It's Friday.
Absolutely. It's always a good day to be
Awesome.
Friday.
So,
So, what do we got on top for today, Zach?
well, I guess we should start out with the news like always.
Yes.
I think we're going to start using this site as our trusty news source. Star Wars. StarWarsNews.com.edu.gov. A billion to one. But they have posted new cast members. We have new people coming in. Poe is going to be more prevalent now. Poe is supposed to be like the new Han Solo, but they didn't really have much in the...
Will he finally meet Rey in Last Jedi?
Who knows, but he is now a mentor. He is going to have a gunner in his ship by the name of Paige, played by Veronica Nago, who as well has a sister who's going to be on screen. She's a newcomer, Kelly Marie Trans. They call her Rose.
Oh, I saw her.
Is she pretty?
She's adorable. She's
Really?
a little petite thing. I watched the 40th anniversary when they did the all the new people came out and stuff. She's adorable. This said something mechanic or something. I think is what they were saying about her.
Yeah, saying she's going to be Poe's gunner.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. And then we have... Where is it? Oh, apparently she goes off on Finn a lot.
Like-
she rips Finn a new one.
John Boyega?
John
or
Boyega.
Finn's character?
No,
in the
John
movie?
Boyega's character Finn. The
Hold on.
two characters, Rose is going to rip into Finn.
In the theatrical release?
Yes.
Okay, not like, oh, I hate John Boyega, I'm going to tear him a new asshole off set.
No. Rose is just going to tear Finn a new asshole.
Do you think she'll break up the bromance?
No, Finn.
That's their merger name.
Yeah.
Foe.
Yeah, Pin, Foe, whatever you want to call them.
That's a hardcore
They're forever.
bromance.
All
They're
right.
forever. And then we have Laura Dern. She's a resistance officer, Vice Admiral Holdo. Elegant woman. I'm looking at a picture now. Bright purple hair. Adorable. And Valencio del Toro. They don't have a name for him yet. They don't know
They're
what...
calling him DJ.
Yeah, but they don't know what he's going to do. He just looks like a drunk bum in this picture.
Yeah, he did.
He just looks
Those are the ones from
sleazy.
Vanity Fair, right?
Yes. A
Oh,
lot of...
those were
Apparently
amazing.
Vanity Fair is prevalent when Star Wars news
Danny
net.
Leibovitz took the pictures, and they're fabulous.
Yeah, these are
The
amazing
one
pictures.
of Luke and Leia almost made me cry, actually.
So if you ever want any more info, just StarWarsNewsNet.com. That's where you get your
I'm a
prime
big
source.
fan of Dork Side of the Force.
Dork Side of the Force?
It's a
Dork side of the Force.
It's hilarious.
Didn't know that.
They always do little funny, like memes and all sorts of little stories.
Cool.
I love them.
That's the way to go. So, for today's topic, we will be doing this in celebration the 40th anniversary of the single greatest cinematic film to ever hit the silver screen at that point in time.
Preach it, Pastor.
And that is known as the film Star Wars. Now,
Or if I want to get under Cameron's skin and give him just, not force chills, just want to hate me, A New Hope.
you could call it that. We'll get into
No, I like the 77, like you said last time.
Star
I like
That's-
irritating him.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun.
You like grinding my gears, buddy.
It's a lot of fun.
All right, so I feel like the best way to fully understand how all the characters that we know and love and enjoy in the Star Wars universe came about is to fully see exactly what went through the process of writing Star Wars and what kind of went through George Lucas's mind as we see through this.
Full disclosure, Cameron's going to use a lot of big words. If you don't understand it, I'm right there with you.
Big words. All right.
Yes.
Here we go.
He's a grammar Nazi at heart.
I think it's more of a dictionary at that point, though. Anyway, I'm also correcting people all the
Okay,
time.
thesaurus.
Thesaurus.
Call him Merriam-Webster from now on.
I have one thing to ask of you guys when listening to this little history lesson.
Han shot first.
Should we raise our hand, teacher?
You can just blurt out.
I like her. She chimes in a lot with us.
The one
I'm
thing,
a smart ass.
the one thing I want you guys
Silent
to
high
know
five.
about this history lesson is for you to forget everything that you think you know about Star Wars. Forget that Luke Skywalker was played by a Mark Hamill, the main protagonist of the original trilogy. Forget that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father. Forget what the planet Tatooine looks like. Forget that Mace Windu was played by Sam Jackson. I want you to forget everything about the Star Wars universe and travel back in time with me to the year 1973. George Lucas's second theatrical film came out called American Graffiti, and it was substantially better than his first theatrical release, which was titled THX 1138.
Never heard of any of them.
Okay, have you seen American Graffiti?
Actually, I'm not.
What?
I know. Surprise, surprise.
He's also not a fan of Lucas.
I have seen a lot of his movies, though. Howard the Duck, fantastic.
Oh, wow.
The very first Marvel movie ever that no one likes talking about.
What, that was a Marvel movie?
Howard the Duck is a Marvel character.
No way.
Yes.
I did not
He
know
even
that.
has cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy in both of the Guardians of the Galaxies.
I didn't realize
Really?
that Marvel
Howard the
had
Duck
rights
is one
to
of
that.
Marvel's
I'll
oldest
have to
characters.
mention that to my husband because he would think that's funny.
I think my
He
favorite part.
He before Deadpool even broke the fourth wall, Howard the Duck was the first one to start doing it.
I own it. You
I
guys
have
watch
to
it.
say
Deadpool?
that
I have
mask was
Howard the
creepy.
Duck.
Oh god.
That mask was creepy.
Oh, the duck?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I love the part where he gets transported from the seemingly human duck world to the human world, and then he has to beat up these two overplayed robbers using his quack foo to protect a prostitute, and then he fucks her. And
Bless
then at
her
the
for
end,
wanting to fuck a
they
duck.
they beat the evil principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off with lightning bolts.
Oh
it's
my
the
God, he's the
funniest
best
shit
bad
on the
guy
planet.
ever.
Oh god.
You know he's a real life pedophile.
I know, I heard.
Oh, I forgot
Dude.
his name.
He is a creeper.
Yeah, I
That
know.
Dude.
No wonder he got so much pleasure watching the so-called daughter and father make out. It's one of those families, huh?
What do you? Oh,
And Ferris
okay,
Bueller.
Yeah. I was like, it was, okay. Well, so essentially, THX 1138 came out in 1971, and it's essentially a look at an Orwellian 25th century totalitarian state where mankind is stripped of any form of individuality.
He has a hard-on for Distant Future, doesn't he? In sci-fi.
Lucas, I'm sure he had. This is one of his main key points for him to thinking of a space western eventually down the road. People, are numbered as drones, and the government used an enforced program to sedate drugs while controlling the populace. The story's title character, THX, which was his code name, is a factory worker who loses his life irrevocably, changing when he stops changing his mind and starts running from the totalitarian state with his girlfriend. That's essentially what goes on in THX 1138, just for a little synopsis for you. Then
This
came
kind of sounds
American-
like the original Judge Dredd, too, running
Yeah.
from the law.
And then that was a terrible theatrical flop. That was originally one of George Lucas's student films when he came out of USC in '67, and that almost ended the zoetropic era because the movie theater market crashed in 1969, and they were just pumping out anything just to get the system back going again. Fuck it, THX 1138, let's do it. And it was
it's
terrible.
not a bad concept.
It isn't.
It
but
was just a really shitty way of
there was
delivering
no
it.
there was no dialogue.
Not everybody's first movie, though, is going to be a great success.
No,
it's
not at all.
It's not.
And in fact, American Graffiti was a substantial improvement. It wasn't a box office smash, but it
No, it wasn't. It's a cult classic, though.
I'm talking about box office ratings.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it was 10 times more profitable.
Well, if THX did so bad, I think anything he did afterwards is going to be substantially better.
Yeah.
I mean, it kickstarted a lot of characters, a lot of Hollywood actors' films like Richard Dreyfuss and Harrison Ford. If you didn't know that.
I did not.
It's the film that was called where the actors all got their start. But it was an interesting concept. I think it was about drag racing and... do you know anything about it?
It's kind of about the 50s. It's
50s?
kind of like Grease without all the singing.
Okay, yeah.
A little bit more raunchy. Actually, Grease is a lot more raunchy than the movie version.
Oh, yeah, all
Yeah.
the
The
subtle
stage version's
stuff.
pretty nasty.
I haven't
They
seen the
dumbed it down a
stage.
bit. So, 1973. We come back to the year we know nothing of the Star Wars universe. George Lucas first has the idea of this space western that takes place where dogs would fly spaceships. And after the CEO of Fox, Alan Ladd Jr., came up to Lucas after seeing American Graffiti, he said, "The next movie you want to do, I am down for it." And he's like, "Well, it's going to be a space movie about dogs flying ships. He's like, whatever. I want to make your next movie. I don't care what it is. He admired Lucas that much. So that's how he got the Fox deal, and after going from Universal and American Cinema.
So dogs flying ships, he must have took a real hardcore hit of acid for that. Could you see
I'm
it?
telling you, a lot of the stuff he's going to talk about, I swear he was on like LSD
There's
or
a lot
opiates.
of
Yeah, it's
stuff.
like a really bad LSD trip.
All right. So, essentially, in order to get to exactly what I'm going to get to, we need to look at the sources that George Lucas had came about. Because no inventor truly invents something new unless you're the first one. You have to have certain concepts that came before it for you to create your own product. And those certain products that affected George Lucas's work on Star Wars were predominantly the film from 1957, Hidden Fortress, by Akira Kurosawa. It's substantially affecting it. This guy did Seven Samurai, if you've ever seen that movie. Another huge factor was the 1930s and 40s movie serials of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, which of course took place in space. And if you guys don't know what movie serials are, they're essentially TV episodes that occurred weekly in movie theaters. And they happen in dozens, they happen in 12-part series.
Movie. They'd run the news before the movies, too.
And that's what happened. And then Frank Herbert's 1969 novelization of Dune was a substantial influence on it. Yeah. In fact, it entirely affected the thing that we know as the Force, which came about in the second draft of Star Wars, being called the Force of Others.
Wait, you're not saying the Force derived from midichlorians?
No, it did not. In fact, there's a lot cooler of an explanation that Lucas had originally a lot better idea for the source of the Force, and it is so much cooler than midichlorians that what came about later, the scientific explanation. I'll tell you what it was. He was obsessed with kyber crystals in the second draft, and he thought that if a Jedi wields what he called a laser sword, and laser sword
I'm
power.
so glad he said lightsaber afterwards. Laser sword just sounds ridiculous.
You can see where it came about.
Hokey, yeah.
So inside the Jedi Bendu's laser sword was a kyber crystal, and through that the Force was amplified, and that's where the Jedi got their power from their lightsabers. Now they could have been born with it, but the lightsaber greatly amplified it. I think that's so much cooler than enchanted blood beetle quantities. I don't know. I just think that's a really cool concept.
Blood beetle quantities.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
So Lucas,
I don't know. It's kind of like a Spider-Man. You know, like the spider comes along and bites him, and then he has all these powers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the midichlorians.
Except a lot less cool.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Like if Jar Jar came around and bit Spider-Man, that would be more relevant.
That's a terrifying thought.
Can we pretend he doesn't exist?
We do.
Toby?
The big grouper fish.
Boo.
So, Lucas's first plan was to make a Hidden Fortress either a sequel or a reboot. So he went over to Toho Films, and they straight out said, no, fuck you. So he's like, all right, well, Flash Gordon's been a really big thing. What if I do a Flash Gordon reboot? You know, maybe I can go to Universal and try to get the rights to that. And they said, no, fuck you. And so what he did, he's like, all right, fuck it, I'm just going to combine the two and hope for the best. And that's exactly what he did. And the result was a substantial hit success that had no copyright infringement because he altered it through about 4 drafts. Now, the drafts that we're going over, there's essentially 6 that we'll be looking at, and there's 4 official 300-page scripts that, of course, I'm not going to be reading. I'll give you simple synopsises, but it'll be very easy for us to follow along in his thought process and the changes that came about. So, the first ever write on the piece of paper that George Lucas put down. We don't know the date because he didn't date it, but the title of the piece of paper was called...
Can I ask how you got all this information before we get into it? Where'd you come across it?
My biggest source was The Secret History of Star Wars.
Is it a movie? Or?
That's a book.
It's a book?
And wills.nu. WHILLS.nu.
I think you sent me that.
I did send you that link in case you wanted to study a little bit for it.
Yes, it was interesting.
That has essentially all the public drafts out there, and the Secret History of Star Wars shows you exactly what I'm telling you now. So... the title of the piece of paper that George Lucas put down was called Journal of the Wills.
I kind of like that, though. It has a catchy ring to it.
It does.
It does kind of sound mysterious, doesn't it?
And if they made that part like the EU is like a hidden piece of text that could like unlock so many powers, that'd be even cooler. We should try to research that.
It seems through deductive reasoning that Journal of the Wills is supposed to be somewhat closer to the Jedi's Bible later.
The Jedi Code.
Yeah, it referenced it like from Journal of the Wills 1:137, like a Bible verse.
So I know a lot of people have been talking about in Force Awakens with the the Jedi trailer, the Last Jedi trailer.
Yeah.
The tree scene with the books, and
The Force Tree, right?
yes, our dear Force tree.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are coming under the assumption that maybe that is in there. The Journal of the Wills or their Jedi Bible is one of those books.
That'd be
And
really
that
cool to see.
maybe, well, because what happened to Luke, he went out and started hunting for Jedi relics. Just like, Palpatine went out and hunted for Sith relics.
Right.
So maybe he found something. Maybe he put it in this tree to hide it and keep it safe.
Which is why maybe he found something that's why he wants to rid the galaxy of the Jedi.
Actually,
Or
I don't
just
see that as a
stop
bad theory.
stop being Jedi, because he's like the last one.
Man.
It's time for the Jedi to end. Oh look, I'm the last Jedi.
I don't think it's a bad theory.
Who's this pretty young lady coming up to me who can wield a lightsaber?
Not a Jedi yet. So
I will not train you, little girl.
he's too old to be a Jedi. So essentially, the story of Journal of the Wills, which is not official Disney canon. This is the first draft of Star Wars. And I say that because I actually mean it. There's 3 first drafts. It starts off like this, and this is the only thing that's viewed to the public that I actually own. It says, "This is the story of Mace Windy, a revered Jedi Bendu of Ofuchi, as related to us by C.J. Thorpe, Padawan learner of the famed Jedi." Now, Mace Windy would probably look nothing like Samuel L. Jackson. Just
No.
keep that in mind. Just some distinct,
Almost
undiscernible
sounds like a chick.
human.
Yeah, right. It does kind of sound like a chick.
Jedi Bendu, of course, is I think a fuller name for Jedi, which at this point was not the monk restricted light side user that we know today, but as someone
Excluding
who was a
Mundi.
samurai who acted as some form of a police officer to maintain peace in the galaxy. A lot cooler. And that
So,
was actually
muscle for hire. Because
Yeah.
that's what samurai were.
yeah, samurai. That's exactly what they were supposed to be
But
like.
they were trained, like
Oh, yeah.
super trained.
Yeah.
It's almost like ninja. They're like the Jedi ninjas.
Yeah, so now what I was able to get was, even though those 2 pages that Lucas wrote aren't available to the public, there's a guy who wrote this entire series, J.W. Rinsler, who made the making of Star Wars books, read it, and he gave a synopsis of it, and it goes like this. In the brief plot outline, Mace Windy is a Jedi Bendu or Jedi Templar. They switch back and forth. It's a vague sci-fi adaptation of a space superhero crossed with a samurai. Windy takes on an apprentice, C.J. Thorpe, who narrates the story retrospectively in first person. The tale is uncharacteristically literary in style and is divided into 2 parts, headed by 1 and 2, respectively. Part 1 is being Thorpe's training, and Part 2 is his greatest mission. Now, the initials CJ or C2, they switch back and forth, stand for Chewie 2, Thorpe of Kissel. Any of that sound familiar?
Well, Kessel Run.
The Kessel Run,
Chewbacca, Chewie.
Chewbacca, and
C3 is C3.
C-3PO.
Yeah.
This name and it started 3 different concepts we know to be in the Star Wars universe, predominantly 2 characters. Now, of course, Chewie was spelled C-H-U-I-E-E, and it was a C2 that later evolved into a C3 and then a P-O along with a Chewbacca. I think it's a really
An
interesting
annoying
concept.
voice.
Here's another cool thing. C.J. Thorpe's father was named Han Dardell Thorpe, who was
hell
a
no.
chief pilot
Oh, she's
of the
out, I don't
renowned
know.
galactic cruiser Tarnak. Han was, and that's right there. Han, right at the beginning, he got that down.
Yeah, we thought names in Star Wars are kind of off the wall now. He was really tripping on something, just mixing, hey, I'm going to throw in these random letters and just say some random gibberish.
Yeah.
Like how they do in Rick and Morty.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rick and Morty's
And
pretty
on the flim flam,
Yeah.
you give him a glim flam.
You gotta tickle the flumbus.
It's a plumbus.
Plumbus.
Yeah. All right. So, at the age of 16, Chewie enters the Exalted Intersystems Academy to train as a potential Jedi Templar. It is there that he became the Padawan learner of the great Mace Windy, at the time warlord to the chairman of the Alliance of Interdependent Systems. Some felt that he was more powerful than the imperial leader of the Galactic Empire. Ironically, It was his own comrades' fear that led to the replacement of Mace Windu and said expulsion from the royal forces. After Windu's dismissal, Chewie begs to stay in his service until he had finished his education. And then Part 2 takes up the story as it was 4 years that our greatest adventure began. We were guardians on a shipment of fusion portables to Yavin when we were summoned by the desolate second planet of Yoshiro by a mysterious courier from the chairman of the Alliance. At this point, Lucas's first space fantasy narrative falls off. And that's all we really know about Journal of the Wills. And this is the first thing that he ever put down in paper. And essentially, the plot summary has very little relation to the final product, but it contains a few elements that would be later incorporated into the screenplays, like Chewie and Han and the Galactic Empire.
Mace Windu.
Mace Windu.
I'm so glad he got rid of Windu.
Yeah, Windu sounds kind of dumb. And of course, Jedi. That's also very important. Now, the second thing that Lucas came about was also, we don't know the date of this, he wrote down a list of names and a list of planets that he would later use in the drafts. And essentially, the characters would remain the same or change slightly, but the names would flip-flop. So reading the different scripts gets very confusing when the Luke Skywalker of the first draft is very different from the Luke Skywalker of the second draft. And some of those names that he wrote down were Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Anakin Starkiller, spelled Annikin, Owen Lars, Darklighter, Biggs, and most importantly, Darth Vader. Now, this is a very interesting concept because even before the idea of Luke Skywalker being the main protagonist of Star Wars, he had came up with the title of Darth Vader, which actually remained constant among the drafts. Darth Vader's name was never intended to be a subliminal message of meaning father in Danish, I believe. German. This was never intended to be that. It was really well how it worked out like that, but it was purely coincidence at this point. Some of the planets he named on the second list were Aquilai, Yavin, Ofuchi, and Organa Major. I guess none of those really... Oh, Yavin, of course, stayed in the system, but all of those kind of changed around and were thrown.
Well, they kept Organa, and instead of making it a planet, it is now a family.
Right.
Interesting, another one I think went on there was Hadabagan, which was a Metropolis state planet, which would later become Coruscant in the prequels.
Gotcha, yeah.
That was later used in the drafts for Revenge of the Jedi.
Hadabagan. He had a bag, and it's gone.
So...
He smoked it all.
Yep, that's it.
He had to be on something drafting this stuff.
Dude, seriously, he smoked it all.
Yeah.
All of it.
So the reason why he threw out Journal of the Wills was because his mentor at the time, Francis Ford Coppola, the guy who directed Apocalypse Now and Godfather...
Oh, best movie ever.
Oh, fantastic.
I love it.
He said, George, it's just too confusing. You know, you need to make it more simple for people to understand. And George is like, well, okay, I'm just going to stick with what I know. And this is where the first story synopsis came about in May 1973. Now, originally this draft was rejected by United Artists, and it's because they projected the budget to be $3 million, which was a huge time in 1970, a huge quantity of money in 1973.
Oh yeah, now that's like lunch money.
Change.
That's lunch money.
Yeah.
What lunch
And
are
then
they eating?
They showed this synopsis to Universal, and Universal didn't get back to them before the 10-day allotted deadline. So, of course, Alan Ladd Jr. came sweeping in and was like, "Hey, you're gonna make the Star Wars movie? Let's do it. Let's make that movie." And they're like, "All right, cool." And Alan Ladd Jr. actually was Star Wars' saving grace. Without him, the film never would have got published. Because he kept it under the table for like a week or so when Lucas was trying to film the last sections of the film. And actually, Lucas didn't direct all of Star Wars, believe it or not. The last 3 parts was directed by Gary Kurtz. The last third of the film, we split that into thirds. George Lucas did a third, Gary Kurtz did a third, the producer of Star Wars, and I believe... I don't remember the third guy. I'm thinking Ralph McQuarrie, but I don't think that was him. So,
I don't know either.
Interesting little concept. The summary of the synopsis goes like this. Over the planet Aquilai, a group of starfighters flew towards a distant speck. The speck...
Didn't say that for Marvel at all.
Yeah.
Aqualai.
I wonder where's that from?
It sounds like Aquaman.
Oh, well.
That's DC.
Like, oh, damn.
It's not spelled like
Six
that.
Flags today, too.
Oh, man.
In all my DC glory. Way to go.
The speck gradually resolved into an immense space fortress, which the fighters attacked. It was the 33rd century. Civil war had struck the galaxy, which was ruled by an empire. A princess fleeing the empire was traveling with her protector, General Luke Skywalker. 2 bureaucrats posted to the space fortress prematurely evacuated up to the surface of Aquilai, and her general, disguised as farmers, and the 2 functioners were taken as hostage. They headed for Gordon, a spaceport. Clearly, that was an allusion to Flash Gordon. Absolutely. En route, they encountered and destroyed an Imperial patrol and visited a temple. There, a group of rebel boys hoped to join them, but were refused. However, when the dangerous creatures attacked the princess's camp that night, they arrived and proved their mettle. Skywalker, who was closely more resemblant to the Obi-Wan Kenobi character we know, that's the general, then allowed them to come with them. They then arrived at Gordon, and a fight broke out in the cantina. Skywalker used his laser sword to defend one of the boys. They made contact with the Resistance and were directed to the freighter to get off the planet. However, an Imperial spy eavesdropped on the freighter and made it a trap. Eluding the ambush, they stole a fighter and shot their way out of Gordon. In orbit, they blended into the Imperial fleet, but as they headed towards Ofuchi, sound familiar, they were stopped and ordered to heave for a boarding. A firefight ensued and they fled into an asteroid field. Eventually, the ship was hidden in an asteroid, and when the Empire broke off their search, nonetheless, the fighter was seriously damaged and broke apart above Yavin. They encountered a tribe of aliens. The party was broken up as Skywalker was attacked and fell into the chasm. The princess and the bureaucrats ended up being captured by the aliens and sold to the Empire. Skywalker, however, had survived and gained the trust of some of the aliens. He and the boy rebels attacked the Imperial outpost and the planet after being directed to an old farmer, but the princess had already been sent to the Imperial capital of Alderaan. A squadron of devil fighters were present. The general trained the boys to fly them, and they went to Alderaan, masquerading as Imperial Rangers.
So he kept a lot of old stuff.
A lot of this takes part in the Star Wars saga. The bureaucrats were R2 and 3PO. The aliens on Yavin were the Wookiees, which later became Ewoks.
Right.
Gordon, of course, was Mos Eisley, where all this came about. The asteroid field we saw on Empire. A lot of this
But you're right, though, that Luke Skywalker character is basically Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. He chopped off an alien's arm in a cantina.
Exactly.
The rebels infiltrated the prison and freed the princess. Sound familiar? The bureaucrats were along for the ride. They fought their way off-world and made it to Ofuchi, where the princess and her uncle, the planetary ruler, rewarded everyone. The bureaucrats realized then that their companions were demigods. That essentially is the synopsis of this. Now, what's really interesting about this story synopsis is that it is a verbatim copy from a book by Donald Ritchie from 1965, who wrote about the films of Akira Kurosawa. The one film we're talking about, of course, is Hidden Fortress, where Donald Ritchie does a synopsis of Hidden Fortress, and then Lucas literally copies word for word.
Plagiarized.
Absolutely.
So, what?
Lucas, I have 5 quotes here.
Star Wars.
No wonder you don't like him so much.
Star Wars is an American's interpretation of a Japanese man's film.
Yeah.
And since Lucas had such a hard-on for futuristic sci-fi, he turned an ancient story into a futuristic story. Damn near the same thing.
Hidden Fortress took place in the 16th century, while Star Wars, the Star Wars story synopsis took place in the 33rd century.
I think that has a lot to do, though. Japan's story set up so far back. They're so about their history.
Yeah.
They're all about culture and history and protocol over there.
And here comes some Jufro dude. Now I'm gonna take your story and make it my own.
As long as you put lights on it and change the bureaucrats to droids, fuck you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Oh yeah.
That's how you get away with copyright stuff.
Now they're different planets. Ooh.
That's how you get away with copyright stuff. He's got
flying
twisted.
Space Fortress.
Oh man, right,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the way he's
All
making
right.
his money.
So, verbatim, Lucas copied the films of Akira Kurosawa by Donald Ritchie. Here's just a quote. I'm going to give you 5 quotes. Tell me if you guys think that this is, just maybe possibly plagiarism by Lucas. This is from Hidden Fortress. It is the 16th century, a period of civil wars. A princess with her family, her retainers, and her clan treasure is being pursued. If they can cross enemy territory to reach a friendly province, they will be saved. The enemy knows this and posts a reward for the capture of the princess. Versus the Star Wars. It is the 33rd century, a period of civil wars in the galaxy. A rebel princess with her family, her retainers, and the clan treasure is being pursued. If they can cross territory controlled by the Empire and reach a friendly planet, they will be saved. The Sovereign knows this and posts a reward for their capture of the princess.
It's like one of those wacky Mad Libs. Just fill in the blank and change the thing.
Change
now,
the word.
Planet.
What's that? We're going to change horses to land speeders.
Sure, why
Yeah.
not? Let's make stuff up.
Exhibit B from Hidden Fortress. She is being guarded by one of her generals when it is he who leads her along the dangerous journey that follows. They take along with them 1,600 pounds of gold and also 2 farmers whom the general has captured. Versus the Star Wars. She is being guarded by one of her generals, and it is he who leads her along the dangerous journey that follows. They take along with them 200 pounds of greatly treasured aura spice, and also 2 imperial bureaucrats whom the general has captured.
I think that just proves. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
no reason to even go any further.
Lucas is not
Lucas
the
is a
man most
plagiaristic
fans
douchebag.
praise.
Here we go. Here's my favorite one. I got 5 here, but I'm going to give you a nice third one. Here's from Hidden Fortress. The princess and the general are disguised as farmers, and the peasants join their party with the intention of stealing their horses and royal treasure. It doesn't take them too long to realize the general isn't a farmer, and that they are captives about to embark on a dangerous mission. The 2 peasants are essentially comic relief inserted among the general seriousness of the adventure. Versus the Star Wars. The princess and the general are disguised as farmers, and the bureaucrats join their party with the intention of stealing their land speeder and aura spice.
This is
It doesn't
so
take
bad.
them too long to realize the general isn't a farmer and that they are captives about to embark on a dangerous mission. The 2 bureaucrats are essentially comic relief inserted among the general seriousness of the adventure.
3PO and R2D2.
Right,
Absolutely.
pretty much.
That is,
What
you
a
need
dick.
any further evidence?
Yeah, you don't even need to go anymore.
George
That's
Lucas
just-
blatantly took the book, The Films of Akira Kurosawa, Hidden Fortress, by Donald Ritchie, and he just copied onto a notepad
He
and
just
changed a
wacky
few
Mad Libs
words. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. Now, luckily, there were several more versions that came along that became slightly more original as they developed. But
The word slightly is used very loose.
yeah, that's essentially what had occurred over time, and it's really weird how they went about just doing it. It's really strange how they just put forward that.
Yeah, that's wow.
So, first draft comes along. Lucas gets the okay from 20th Century Fox, and he begins writing in May 1974 with the first rough draft. Now, I'm reading you the first draft, which came around in June 1974. Nearly the same thing. Here's the opening crawl. Until the Great Rebellion, the Jedi Bendu were of the most feared warriors in the universe. For 100,000 years, generations of Jedi perfected their art as personal bodyguards of the Emperor. They were the chief architects of the invincible Imperial Space Force, which expanded the Empire across the galaxy. From the celestial equator to the farthest reaches of the Great Rift, now these legendary warriors are all but extinct. One by one, they have been hunted down and destroyed by the enemies of the new Empire by a ferocious and sinister rival warrior sect, the Knights of the Sith. That's pretty cool, in my opinion. I really like that.
Yeah. The Great Rebellion is what they're calling it now,
Yeah.
huh?
I enjoy the Knights of the Sith.
I like that
sounds
too.
pretty
I'd like to get that
badass.
tattooed on my other arm.
The Knights of the Sith. I'm glad they did away with
You know
the
what,
Bendu,
though? I mean,
though.
Well, they created a Bendu in Rebels, right? There's a
Yeah, there is a
species
Bendu.
called a Bendu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm glad they did away with it and not calling them Jedi Bendu. Now they're just
I don't know, it sounds kind
Jedi.
of cool. But whatever. It's just opinions at this point.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit. The Knights of the Sith fits perfectly.
Holy crap, is that cool.
That fits perfect.
Yeah.
So essentially, the summary of the
But
first...
you know, that, going into that Knights of the Sith, Knights of Ren,
Yep, very
so
similar.
it kind of morphed into that, maybe.
And the main protagonist of this one is a guy named Anakin Starkiller, which could clearly be an allusion to Starkiller Base.
True, good point. Starkiller Base,
Mm.
for sure.
Journal of the Wills, that's referenced in Rogue One. Jarrett Imwe and Baze Malbus were guardians of the Wills.
For sure, but I do, like I say, I kind of go with that guy's theory. I don't remember what his name was. I watched something on YouTube, but I do think that whatever is hiding in that force tree is probably something having to do with the Journal of the Wills. There's just too
I would
much
love to see that.
hapstance, surrounding it. It's going to happen.
Right.
I think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
It being incorporated some way into the main films.
Well, it would make sense, though, if that's the whole thing came off of an idea of the Wills being, the storytelling group.
The Bible.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay. So the summary of the first draft, the first rough draft, essentially there's a Jedi named Kane Starkiller. Great name. And he had 2 sons, Deke and Anakin Starkiller.
Deke sucks.
You don't like Deke?
Deke is
Just
a
the
bad name.
You
You
don't,
don't, you don't like the Triple Deke from freaking Mighty Ducks?
No, I don't.
you don't even
Deke
know
is
the
a bad
character
name.
Deke. Yeah,
Deke is a bad
It is a
name.
bad name. He got rid of
See,
that.
thank you. Stop trying to give me crap if it's a bad
You don't know
name.
the characters like
I don't care about the character. The name is bad.
I guess we could have called him Dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was spelled D-E-A-K, like teak, but with a D.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived on the 4th moon of Utapau, which is no resemblance to the Utapau that we know, and is closely more resemblant of Tatooine.
I do admire him for keeping a lot of his original names and ideas,
Yeah,
and maybe just placing them in different spots. Like we have Anakin Skywalker, when, as he just said, it's Anakin Starkiller.
I don't
but
know. I think Starkiller.
Starkiller came around.
Skywalker, man.
Starkiller came back around, in The Force Unleashed, the video game, before they even put Starkiller base in The Force Awakens.
Starkiller was eradicated from canon.
It was still a cool story,
Very
nonetheless.
cool. Yeah. All right, so
He was a badass. He was probably a lot
It just
stronger than
sounds
Vader.
Badass. It just
Absolutely.
really Starkiller. Yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, right.
So, they lived on the 4th moon of Utapau, which can clearly be resemblant of the planet Utapau on the 4th moon of Yavin, where the rebel base was. So, their seclusion from the forces of the Galactic Empire is interrupted by the arrival of a Sith flying a Banta 4 starfighter. The Jedi and his sons go to investigate, but the Sith gets a jump on them, killing Deke with a single blow. So Deke's already killed off.
Yay!
Darn.
You know what Deke's like. Oh, he's got a stupid name.
I don't need to get to know him.
Their foe is no match, however, for a Jedi Master, and Kane avenge his apprentice. It is clear that the exiles must flee to the Kissel system, where
boy.
they leave for their homeworld of
They make it
Aqualai.
less than 12 parsecs?
Yeah.
Depends if that's a unit of
13,
time or not.
what?
It's 14. Oh, it's 12. Aqualai, a planet not yet controlled by the Empire, is ruled by the wise king Chaos and Queen Breha. Which is kind of interesting how they had royalty in this part, and Lucas later altered that princess adaptation of Leia to mean a diplomatic, a democratic position rather than a monarchy. Which
So
That's a good point.
Queen Amidala
Queen
would
Amidala
be...
was a democratic position, but she had the title of someone in a monarchy
It had a
state.
different interpretation to the...
He altered that later, but at
Yeah.
this point we should treat these people as monarchy. Well, I guess duarchy, if you call it like that. Unfortunately, even the Jedi arrive in the system, and the Galactic Emperor, Kos Dashit...
Yeah, they have
Bullshit.
To change that.
I think
Bullshit.
I think it's Dashit. Plots with his advisors to annex it. One of the last interdependent systems. Spies on Alderaan, the gas giant capital of the Empire, leave to bring news of Aqualai's leadership. Meanwhile, Kane and his sons arrive at Aqualai and contact the royal government and their underground fortress. Kane reunites with a fellow Jedi, Luke Skywalker, which more closely still resembles Obi-Wan, now a general in the Aqualian military.
Not some whiny boy.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm so glad they made... I'm so glad they made him mature.
Yeah.
He was whiny.
He was.
Kane reveals to his friend the extent of the cybernetic replacements. Only his head and his arm remain flesh, very similar to Darth Vader. Because of this, he believes that he cannot adequately train his remaining son, Anakin, and asks Skywalker to train him as his Padawan learner.
Ooh.
Not long after this, Princess Leia, Chaos' daughter, leaves for Ewell, another planet, to study at the Katos Academy. A huge space fortress enters the Aqualian system. Gee, that sounds familiar. The king leaves for Amsel to meet with the Senate and determine whether to go to war with the Empire. Kane goes to Gordon and a speedy spaceport to meet with his friend Han Solo, a Uralian, which Euralian, which essentially at this point was an alien species that looked like a creature from the Black Lagoon. They had greens and had fins on the side of their head and gills. So essentially, Han Solo was a fish.
Yeah, Swamp Thing.
Yeah, Swamp Thing. When the wounded. What?
He's my favorite, so I don't care if he was a fish or not.
He becomes
He was
human
pretty
later.
badass, so I don't really care.
Took no shit.
Yeah. When the wounded Clig Whitsun, one of the
What?
spies of Alderaan, arrives to warn the Aquileians of the Empire's plans of conquest, a decision is quickly made to resist. Anakin is sent to the Academy to secure the princess. The fortress is assaulted and damaged, and 2 droids aboard, C-3PO and R2-D2, prematurely evacuate, landing their life pod in the Jundland Waste, which
Well, there
actually
they are.
takes place in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, there they are.
It transpires that the real person for the invasion of the Aquilion facility with genetics and biology, including cloning. Sound familiar, huh?
Yeah.
Hodak tells Darth Vader
Hodor.
that it is crucial to capture one of the royal family in order to control the planet. I think a lot of this
Did they
takes
give him
place.
fried chicken? My Kodak's down the street.
Yeah, exactly. Since its people have ruled by them for 10,000 years. Without a puppet ruler, he explains, the Empire would get no cooperation stealing the biotic secrets of Aquilai. Simultaneously, King Chaos is killed by an Imperial ambush and the Senate of Aquilai sues for peace. The 2 droids encounter Anakin and Leia returning from the Academy in the desert. They regroup at a hidden entrance in the royal fortress, and the Queen decides to send for help from the Ofuchi system. Luke, Anakin, and the royal children, Fuchi, including Leia's younger brothers, Biggs and Windy.
Biggs is back.
Well, Windy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wendy can go without, but Biggs.
Disguise themselves and leave for Gordon. At Gordon, the heroes, are embroiled in the fracas of the cantina.
The what?
The fracas.
What is fracas?
It's a ruckus, like a dust cloud.
Ah, gotcha.
Outside the cantina, they encounter Han Solo, and in the slums, Kane. It is decided that they leave for Aquilai, and they will have to travel to the Baltarian on a Baltarian freighter. But the power source is needed for the microcases that will hold the young princess in hibernation to avoid detection.
This is all.
They did that in Clone Wars. They had them in hibernation cases to infiltrate a separatist ship. That was cool.
Yeah, you've seen more Clone Wars than I have, so.
Clone Wars. Kane sacrifices one of his own Kane sacrifices one from his own mechanical chest, giving up his life. The freighter, the microcases, of course. The freighter, however, is a trap. The captain is none other than Valorum.
It's a trap!
It's a trap!
That's a trap! The freighter is a trap. The captain is none other than Valorum, one of the Sith Knights, which we actually know about Valorum in the official Star Wars universe in Phantom Menace, who was the previous Chancellor? Is that the name? Chancellor of the Galactic Republic.
Comes full circle.
Yeah, he wasn't a Sith
Chancellor
Knight.
Valorum was Plagueis.
Valorum in the second draft was a lot cooler than Valorum in Phantom Menace. He's a Sith Knight in here.
Pretty much everything's cooler than Phantom Menace.
I'm still the only one that doesn't say Phantom Menace is the lowest ranking one.
It is, dude.
Attack of the Clones is worse.
I think the only... I understand why you ranked it up above Attack of the Clones, because Maul's in it.
Yes.
And Maul's
my favorite
pretty
Sith.
badass.
Maul's
It's
my
not
favorite.
about
Maul's my
idiotic.
favorite character.
Okay.
Then you really need to watch Rebels, because
I
Maul's
know.
in Rebels.
Maul is in Clone.
Clone Wars is so
Clone
much
Wars
better.
too.
But he's in Rebels, too, and he's pretty wicked in that.
I say in Clone Wars he's damn near on the conquest to conquer a galaxy
Yeah, he was.
with Savage
With
Opress.
his brother.
Oh, yes.
Alright. So,
Could have did better name.
yeah. I mean, I love Savage.
He's an oppressed
The
savage.
heroes are subdued and taken prisoner, and they are thrown into a cell. This proves to be only a minor setback as they succeed in overpowering their guards, leaving the ship and taking an Imperial starship. They take off, but are pursued by an Imperial craft. The ship eludes the enemy by entering an asteroid field and passing through one of the forbidden systems. Unfortunately, their ship is critically damaged, and everyone climbs into life pods and they eject the wreck. The pod falls into the jungle planet of Yavin, home of the Wookiees. R2 and Anakin set out from their pod looking for the others. They find a group of Eurelian trappers, spelled Yourellin, as opposed to with the U spelling earlier. Just a little different spelling that he alters from time to time.
Because he can never make up his mind. He's an
Yeah, he
indecisive
changes
little prick.
a lot. Wookiee has no I in it at this point. A trapper's trying to capture the Wookiees. The trappers are routed, and one of the Wookiees, Chewbacca, carries Anakin,
Chewie!
who has been wounded in the fight, to his tribe settlement. R2 follows. As this is going on, everyone but Leia is gathered at the home of the two anthropologists named Owen and Beru Lars.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's recycling his names.
Yeah. Now, at this point, I believe this is the equivalent of the film that we know today. They're just not the uncle and aunt of.
Does it say he was wheelchair ridden too?
What?
Does it say he was bound to a wheelchair too?
That Owen wasn't bound to a wheelchair.
Who was bound to the wheelchair?
His dad.
There you go.
Anyway, I forgot his name.
Sorry, I got you off track.
Meanwhile,
Totally did.
yeah. Meanwhile, after falling Jomilia, Anakin is accepted to the tribe. Han and Skywalker take jet sticks, which essentially become land speeders later down the road.
Yeah, that's a lot better than jet sticks.
Jet sticks,
Yeah.
and locate Anakin, R2, and the Wookiees. Because Han is able to
Something
speak.
you couldn't dip. A jet stick.
Yeah,
Are you
that's-
freaking kidding me?
It's a conceptual ancestor. Give it a break. So,
No, he needs to do better the first time.
You gotta use the dill dip.
the dill dip.
Jesus,
Yep.
The dill dip.
Because Han's able to speak the Wookiee language, the heroes learn that Leia is in prison on the Mavasi outpost. Sound familiar? Masasi outpost on Yavin 4 where the rebels...
Ah,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So, an Imperial camp. The Wookiee language, the heroes that learn that Leia is in prison on the Mavasi outpost. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Han, Skywalker, and Anakin and the Wookiees attack the Imperial base, but find that Leia has already been sent to Aqualai. A group of Imperial troops find Biggs and Wendy, but are defeated.
If he based a lot of this original draft around Aqualai, why did he not keep it?
I think it sounds stupid. Aqualai.
I like it.
I don't like it. I don't know. It wouldn't. I
mean,
don't know.
He didn't...
But he was so heavy on it, I'm surprised he did away with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Aqualite took a lot of precedence in the original drafts, but kind of weeded out over time. I guess because it was just kind of
Because his weed was running out.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
You nailed it.
The Aqualai is named after his bong.
There you go.
That's it.
So, Anakin and R2 fly an Imperial ship to the fortress, and R2 accesses the computer. They find a location of the princess's cell. Anakin disables a stormtrooper and takes his armor. Wow, this sounds really familiar. He is trapped
He's a little
by...
short to be in that armor, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a little short to be a stormtrooper. He's attacked by Imperial troops and is gassed into unconsciousness, and Vader ordered Valorum to execute him. Simultaneously, Skywalker commands a group of fighters piloted by the Wookiees and the 9 vessels and to head towards the fortress. Valorum has a last-minute change of heart and cannot kill the prisoner, and releases him. Together, they find the princess and let her out of the cell. The power fails as the barrage of hits from the Wookiees damage the space station. The heroes, including Valorum, board the lifepods and escape as it explodes. The Queen of Aqualai, Leia, rewards the heroes at the Palace of Light. The droids are upgraded to Class A4, and Anakin is appointed Lord Protector of Aqualai. And that is all that is entailed in the second draft of Star Wars.
Now, I did look on that site that you sent me.
I'm sorry, that was the first draft. Yeah, Will's...
Right, and it was saying there was the original draft and then there was the scripted draft, but based off of the movie. Like, after they had went through and done all the editing and all of that, it went through and it said that he not only had a script, and then they didn't really necessarily follow it, and then he redid a script to base it off of the actual movie itself.
Funny story, the fourth draft of Star Wars, the one that was used in the film, was edited 13 times.
So, I mean, we could sit here all night and go through every
No, it's
single
minor
one.
alterations. That's why we call it the fourth draft still. But it was altered 6 times before the film came about, and the 7th time it came around, Lucas made his first alteration to the Star Wars saga, which he changed the title of the fourth draft from The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from Journal of the Wills, Saga 1, The Star Wars, to Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope.
I say let's try to fit all that into a
Right, that won't fit on
a box.
Yeah, exactly. That won't fit on the side.
Now, what's interesting is that he altered it in 1979 after publishing it to his magazine Bantha Tracks. And around this time, Lucas had just written the second draft of Empire, where he effectively came across the idea of combining the Father Skywalker and Darth Vader character, thusly giving some backstory to Darth Vader, adding another trilogy, making Empire the fifth in the series, and having to alter the title of Star Wars to Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. That's why he did the alteration, and yet the fourth draft clearly states that it was Saga 1. Lucas had the full intention before Star Wars became famous of this being the first in the series, not the fourth.
Right.
Because he hadn't come up with the idea of Luke Skywalker being Darth Vader.
But as you
I'm sorry,
clearly have
Anakin.
told us through this walk down Star Wars history, he is very undecisive.
He changes
So
his mind a lot.
basically, we can't really necessarily be mad at him for going back and doing all those alterations.
I can.
I know. I know how much you.
You just
hate
don't
that, that's why I
like
had to throw it
Lucas.
out there.
This, all we're reading right here, is before the official product was published. Anything after that is altering history itself.
Yes.
And we should maintain the integrity of not only cinematic history, but our society as a whole.
Spoken as like a true historian.
Thank you. So, first draft was written. That was pretty good, but then the second draft came around in January 1975, and it opens like this. The Republic Galactica is dead. Ruthless traitor barons, driven by greed and the lust for power, have replaced the Enlightenment with oppression, and rule by the people with the First Galactic Empire. Oh my god, this crawl is huge. Until the tragic Holy Rebellion of 06, the respected Jedi Bendu of Ashla, which, by the way, Ashla and Bogan are the equivalent of evil and good. Now, the Force, I believe, came about as the Force of Others, directly from Dune by Frank Herbert. But Ashla essentially was good Force, and Bogan was bad Force. I don't know for sure if...
It's bogus Force, man.
Bogus Force. Big.
Red. So,
See,
What?
This dude was straight up stoned.
Ashla
Higher than
was...
hell.
I don't know if Ashla was essentially the Jedi Order, or just the light side of the Force, and Bogan being dark side or the Sith Order. So for, blanket sake, we'll say it's light and dark. So until the Holy Rebellion of 06, they respected the Jedi Bendu of Ashla, who were the most powerful warriors in the universe. For 100,000 years, generations of Jedi Bendu knights learned the ways of the mysterious Force of Others, and acted as guardians of peace and justice in the Republic. Now these legendary warriors were all but extinct. One by one they had been hunted down and destroyed by a ferocious rival sect of mercenary warriors, the Black Knights of the Sith. It is a period of civil war. The Empire is crumbling into lawless barbarianism throughout the millions of worlds in the galaxy. From a celestial equator to the farthest side of the Great Rift, 70 solar systems have united in a common war against the tyranny of the Empire. Under the command of the mighty Jedi warrior known as the Starkiller, and the Rebel Alliance have won a crushing victory over the deadly Imperial Starfleet. The Empire knows that one such more defeat will bring 1,000 more solar systems into the rebellion, and the Imperial control over the Outlands could be lost forever. That's a long crawl.
Yeah,
Yeah, too long.
too much.
Too much. And
Okay.
it sounded so ominous in the beginning. It didn't even bring you in. You're just like, oh god, attack.
I kind of like the first draft better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that one better also.
All right. Whew. Here we go. So essentially, in the second draft, above the planet of Utapau had 5 moons, and a rebel starfighter fled 3 pursuing Imperial Star Destroyers. So now we have the introduction of Star Destroyers as a form of Imperial cruiser that came about. One of the Imperial cruisers exploded, but the rebel craft was damaged. Within the damaged rebel ship were 2 droids, 3PO and R2. The smaller droid led his counterpart to a corridor. A barrage of one of the Star Destroyers blew a hole in the ship, and 3PO was covered in debris. The captain, Deke Starkiller, an Aqualion Ranger, and a Jedi arrived and checked on the hapless robots. He informed his officers that they were a boarding party and that the Sith Knight was with them. Deke sensed him in the Force. Deke ordered a group of R2 units into the ship's life pods to seek help for his younger brother, Luke Starkiller. One of those was sent to R2, who took 3PO along. Stormtroopers swarmed out of the rebel ship and started attacking the crew. After a firefight, Darth Vader, clad in an armored spacesuit, entered the vessel. He flung open fragments of the ship at Deke using the Force, so he was clearly in outer space when this happened. His suit was meant to be a form of a respirators for him to travel into outer space and not to be as a form of helping him with his injury and sustaining life like an iron lung.
With that being said, if the end of the end of Rogue One, where he's standing there in the end, like looking at the ship drive away. I was waiting for them to throw in another no. Really, I was.
Oh, okay.
I really was.
That was bad.
I know, but I really was. And, I mean, hell, why don't you just turn on a little jetpack, and fly off into space? You know?
Well, I think they eradicated that idea of sustained space flight and just said that they could go in ships later in the final film. But at this point, he could travel into space, and he began ripping off the doors in their life pod. So he flung objects and fragments of the ship at Deke using the Force, and he battered the young Ranger. Finally, Vader drained Deke of his life force, and the rebels passed into unconsciousness. Vader believed that he had captured the Son of Suns, S-O-N of S-U-N, and had averted defeat for the Bogan.
So, they did actually create a character called Ashla.
They did?
They did.
Did they create a character called Bogan?
I don't know.
That'd be really cool.
But they did create one named Ashla.
Cool.
She was pretty. You should look her up, guys.
Clearly an allusion to, Ashla from the second draft.
Right, exactly.
Meanwhile, in Utapau, R2 and 3PO are captured by Jawas and imprisoned inside a sandcrawler. After a prison break, the droids escape and get directions to the Lars homestead from a local. The same local, however, reports the droids to an Imperial spy by the name of Grey Tusken.
Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
There you go.
At the Lars moisture farm, the droids encountered Biggs Starkiller and his twin brother, Wendy. You got Wendy back with Biggs, bro.
Oh, God.
Also, residing there was the Jedi Owen and his wife, Beru Lars. The Starkiller.
So now Owen's a Jedi?
Yeah, Owen was a Jedi. And what's funny is that Owen's actually wearing, officially now, Jedi garb, which was, at the point, was originally Tatooinean garb, which is why Obi-Wan also wore that. Later, in the prequels, they're like, well, the only Jedi we really know was Obi-Wan and Yoda, and they were wearing it, so let's just give everyone a brown cloak like a monk. And that's why Owen Lars is wearing somewhat of a Jedi uniform, nearly identical to Obi-Wan. In case you didn't know that.
Huh.
So, Leia Lars, was the 16-year-old cousin of Luke, Biggs, and Wendy. When he was given the code word for Angel Blue...
He can't make up his mind.
Hi, I'm there too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Luke, who is practicing with his laser sword, take that any way you want, stops his exercises and introduces himself as the droid's the Skywalker, his Jedi title, though he was still an apprentice.
So it was a title at this point?
Yeah. So the last name Skywalker changed to a title and then back to a Luke Skywalker later, then to a Luke Starkiller, and then a Luke Skywalker. It's very strange, but that's how we know. Alright, so this is where we begin to see Kyber crystals come into place. R2 projected a hologram from Deke explaining that Luke must take the Kyber crystal, spelled K-A-I-B-U-R-R, as opposed to K-Y-B-E-R that we know today, which was under the care of Owen Lars to Organa Major, the equivalent of Alderaan, where the Empire was attacking the world. The Starkiller father and the 4 Starkiller brothers were defending Organa, but they needed the crystal to protect them against the Bogan and its minions. Owen believed that Deke would have been taken to the imperial capital of Alderaan. Though Luke, having training was incomplete, his heart was set on becoming an archaeologist. He took up the mission, he visited his mother's gravesite that evening, and explained to his brothers that the history of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire. With the Kyber crystal, Luke and the droids took the land speeder to Mos Eisley. As they made their way, Luke scoped out a peruser, the Tusken, with his binoculars. Right there, definitely a direct usage in the end film. In Mos Eisley, Luke made contact...
So now it's Mos Eisley here.
Yeah, it changed from Gordon to Mos Eisley, so now we have
So
this.
how many scripts did he go through before we got
This is
Mos Eisley?
second.
This is the second draft. We got 2 more, and that's the final version.
So Mos Eisley came in 2 then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Luke made contact with Han Solo, a young space pirate. At this point, Han Solo was the human that we know today. Solo came to his aid when a fight breaks out in the Mos Eisley cantina, though Luke's laser sword was more effective than Han Solo's laser pistol. In exchange for 1 million credits on delivery, Solo would get Luke to Organa Major. As it transpired, Solo was deeply in debt to Oxus, the captain of the TDF-104 docked there. So clearly Oxus would later evolve into Jabba the Hutt. But I don't think Oxus would look like Jabba.
And Jabba the Hutt wasn't even a slug.
No, Jabba was originally a Scottish guy, and they later were going to do some stop motion over him, but it became way too costly, and they cut the scene. And then later brought it back in the 1997 special edition with that terrible CG adaptation, which should not have been in the original film and ruins the plot mystery of who Jabba the Hutt is.
Yeah.
All right.
A big slug.
Yeah, big old slug. I want to touch his costume. That sounds like the texture. It seems incredible.
Wow, that's a odd
I
request.
just want to feel Jabba the Hutt. All right.
I want to feel his slimy slugginess.
Ew.
This $500,000 puppet suit.
You can just, I was going to say you could just ask Carrie Fisher, but you can't, so
No.
there's that.
Too soon.
Plus,
I know, right?
even if I did tweet her, I wouldn't be able to understand what she said back to me. She used all emojis. Anyway,
Oh, good.
Oh.
yeah, it was bad. So,
Oh. Dude.
Han Solo actually faked a reactor malfunction, and Solo hijacked Oxus's ship. Oxide ship? No. Only 3 other crew members stayed with them. Montrose Haldak, a science officer, a cyborg, and Chewbacca the Wookiee. The ship blasted off from Mos Eisley and headed to the hyperskip of Organa Major, but their destination was no more. Organa Major had been destroyed by the Empire. How was yet a mystery. How was yet a mystery. Luke directed Han to the pilot ship of Alderaan in hopes of rescuing Deke. The ship docked on the floating city, and Luke and Han stole stormtrooper armor as a disguise. Chewbacca would be their prisoner, and they found Deke now dying from torture and carried him off, escaping both the garrison, Mr. Hyatt, and the strange Dianoga creatures. Now, if you guys know what Dianoga is clearly resembling here, is the Dianoga that was the little trash monster with the eyeball in the trash compactor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ew.
As they blast from the Imperial capital.
I still don't know what that thing officially looks like.
Yeah, I mean
It's
it's got
eyeball,
it's got
and
one
it's
eyeball,
tentacles.
and there's a whole bunch of body down there. There's a lot of tentacles.
Like the Sarlacc. Because we know the Sarlacc is a big
Yeah.
mouth, but there's actually anatomy. There's a book that shows the anatomy of it, and it's like huge,
Yeah, it's got a big old tummy.
doing deep down into the earth.
I wouldn't take it seriously if it had a beak on it. Just saying.
You really don't like
I wonder
the
if
beak.
the planet formed around it.
I'm pretty sure it's just
You know?
up there.
Yeah,
I mean, over
it
time,
was a little. It was
if
a
it
little.
can digest stuff for 1,000 years, it's probably pretty old.
It was a little wormy thing. He's crawl his way. Hey, this looks like a nice pile of sand and bury himself.
Right?
All right. Organa Major had been destroyed by the Empire. How was yet a mystery. Luke directed Han the pilot to ship to Alderaan in hopes of rescuing Deke. The ship docked on the floating city, and Luke and Han stole stormtrooper armor as a disguise. Chewbacca would be their prisoner, quote unquote. They found Deke, now dying from torture, and carried him off, escaping from the garrison and the Dianoga creatures. Sorry, I already read this. Here it is. As they blast out of the Imperial capital, 4 TIE fighters followed them. Luke used his Kyber crystal to keep Deke alive. So here, of course, Lucas in the second draft is heavily going down on the Kyber crystals that he actually holds off later, and then they bring back into the series. As they arrived at their destination, the moon Yavin 4, the site of the secret rebel base, they found that an immense space station had tracked and followed them. Ejecting from the pirate ship, the heroes landed on Yavin in life pods. On Yavin is the Masasi outpost. Sound familiar? Where they were debriefed. General Dodonna, which is actually the guy's name in the end film, explained the dangers of the weakness of the Death Star, which is the first introduction of the Death Star. Before that, it was called the Floating Space Fortress.
How original.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was just when he filled it in until he could think of something cool.
That's no moon. That's a floating space fortress.
You got it. You nailed it right in the head there,
It's a
Obi.
trap.
Yeah, it's a trap.
Miraculously, the Star Killer, Luke's father, survived the destruction of Organa Major. What? How?
He's immortal.
Okay, with the crystal, the ancient Jedi survived.
Yeah, he's that demigod.
He's a
He's a
demigod.
demigod. Not in this draft. He explained that Luke would complete his training with him. Sound familiar? Luke joined the strike force and assembled the attack on the Death Star, but despite a payment of 8 million credits, Han declined to help. With Bail Antilles, sound familiar? Bail
I'm sorry?
Organa and Wedge Antilles?
Oh, yeah.
R2 and 3PO, the crystal, and Luke flew his fighter towards the space station. Other rebel pilots targeted the space station's poles. So he was flying along the equator, I think. It was funny thing. Lucas never actually thought about the Death Star trench was not his idea.
No?
A man by the name of Colin Cantwell, when making the Death Star,
How do you know all this shit?
He reads a lot of books.
Reddit.
Reddit?
He said that he
Reddit is the website, or Reddit is he Reddit?
Reddit. Yes. So
Yes, that doesn't answer my question.
Yes.
I read it on Reddit. That's the joke that
Oh,
goes with Reddit.
oh, man.
So I asked him a few questions actually on his AMA, but Colin Cantwell, when he was making the Death Star, had to put the two halves together, and there was, of course, a boundary line. He's like, "Hey George, do you want me to recast it and fill it in?" He's like, "No, leave that trench there. I'm gonna make something out of it." So there was a big old trench caused by Colin Cantwell, and George is like, "I can fly a ship through there," and that's what
I
happened.
could fly a ship through there.
So Lucas had the idea of the trench run, but the trench itself was not part of his plan originally. Okay, so Darth Vader, however, sensed the crystal and pursued Luke with his personal starfighter. He was about to destroy Luke when his crew, but unexpectedly, Han, Motras, and Chewbacca attacked him, saving the young Jedi. Vader piloted his ship into the pirate's craft, dying but seriously damaging the larger vessel. Luke was able to maneuver the rebel ship into position, and Antilles and 3PO fired their turrets into the exhaust port. The Death
Use
Star
the
exploded, and Luke's ship flew past a life pod from the pirate ship. Han and his crewmates had survived. The Empire had suffered a serious defeat. And here's a closing crawl. You don't see that
A
many of the drafts.
closing crawl?
Yeah, it's a bit shorter. And 1,000 new systems joined the rebellion, causing a significant crack in the Great Wall of the powerful galactic empire. The Star Killer would once again spark fear into the hearts of the Sith Knights, but not before his sons were put to many tests, and most daring of which was the kidnapping of the Lars family and the perilous search for the Princess of Ondos.
Princess of Ondos.
That's the second draft of Star Wars.
So I guess in the closing crawl, compared to the opening crawl, we had the Black Knights of the Sith, and then for some reason wanted to take it away in the closing crawl, his same draft, and just call them the Knights of the Sith again.
I think that's the last place we see the Knights of the Sith in the crawl.
And it's just the Sith afterwards. So, yeah, he's not very,
He's very inconsistent.
yeah. He likes keeping the same names, same planet, same references, same
But
titles.
not even really the same names though, because he'll mix them up. It's kind of like name Jenga. Like, let's take this piece and we'll put it here and mix that together.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Put it in a bowl, jumble it up, pull out a
Right.
title, a name, and put them together.
Right.
The characters themselves were somewhat unique and evolved over time, but the names themselves switched around a lot, which the names came from a lot of the list he made in the beginning, including Darth Vader, which is very important to understand for later. Now, I think at this point, we're kind of running out of time here, so I think for our next one, we'll get to the real meat and juice.
Yeah, we'll do the next
We didn't do it part two.
Part 2.
Part do.
do.
Do. D-E-A-U. Do.
Okay.
Really?
Nah,
You don't know either?
that's on you.
Okay, so I'm old. I'm sorry. I'm way older than both of you. I don't know.
Apparently, fill us in. What's going on? Do. Is it French?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, duh.
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce
Yeah,
it.
I know.
Duh.
But it's...
Du. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Well, thank you. Fancy
All right,
pants.
you gonna smell with this French too?
Well, I'm gonna smell.
Like
Are you gonna start
cheese.
smelling?
Yeah, I'm gonna be like. All right, so
We're gonna do a part 2. There's 2 more drafts that we have here in front of us. I'm sorry if you guys find this boring, but I actually
love it.
I do too. I love hearing the backstory of how what we know and love today became what we know. Like, he had to go through so many revisions and stuff like that to make it what we love today. So if you do enjoy knowing the history of this, please stick around.
Yeah, I think that it's cool to learn all those things, but
But we're gonna quickly quiz our guest.
oh
well,
god.
it'll be all of us. I still don't know the questions.
Okay.
For all you guys, for all of you that managed to stick around for so long,
Hour
listen
and
to the
12 minutes.
hardcore
Right.
scripts of Star Wars. Here's a bit of trivia for you, which we should have done at the beginning. All right, here's a good one. Here's a Force Awakens question. See if you guys can either get this.
Okay.
How many times has Han Solo not delivered to the Conja Club, according to Tasu Leech?
I'm gonna go 3.
3?
3.
All right, what do you say, Angel?
Oh gosh. All I could think about was the Sarlacc eating them. I thought that was the coolest part. I didn't even think about
That was a
Or
Ranthar.
the
Yeah,
Ranthars.
Ranthars.
The Ranthars, that's right.
It was right before that. Do you remember the times that Han Solo has let down Conja Club?
Let's say 5.
Tell that to Conja Club, you're both wrong.
Shice.
Said twice.
Twice.
What was the second time? You remember that?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Again, I've seen it not as many times as you.
All right, you go, Zach.
That's true.
Yes. Let's see. Oh wow, these are easy. I thought I had good ones. Okay, I already asked you this, so you know this, but let's ask you.
Angel.
That's my name.
Yes.
Well, no one knows what you and you is when you're listening
You
to
and
this.
you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in my own little world. Who draws the one remaining Imperial scout at the Endor's bunker back entrance into an ambush?
You didn't ask me that question.
I did not. I picked a
know
new
the
one.
Answer.
I picked a new one.
You picked a new one.
Yeah, new question.
Switching it all
Who
up.
draws? Okay, fine. You want this one? What color are the wings of Obi-Wan Kenobi's starfighter in the battle
Hey,
above
now hold
Coruscant?
Ooh. I want to say that they're orange.
Final answer.
Sure.
Red.
Well, that's pretty damn close to orange.
You're
Yeah,
closer than
it
he
is.
was. You said
I think I said yellow.
you said yellow.
What was the other one? Go back to
Could it
the
be
question
orange,
now.
red, or red, orange?
It was red. That's all it tells. That's all it tells me. It was red. Okay, so
There's a
who?
variation.
Okay, since Cameron is busting at the seams to answer this because
You
it
asked
is
the audience a question.
it is an easy question. This whole card is easy.
You say that.
It
I
is.
warned Cameron before I came. I said, I love Star Wars. I love talking about Star Wars. But if you want to start quizzing me on the little intricacies, you might have a problem.
Yeah. So, who draws the one remaining Imperial scout at the Endor bunker's back entrance into an ambush?
Do you know this one?
I remember them on Endor.
Yeah.
And I remember...
So,
I remember them
I
on
remember
Endor.
them bonking the guy on the head. Didn't they bonk him on the head or something?
nope.
Oh, dude.
Cameron?
It's Han Solo.
I must have been pulling a George Lucas and that.
You were high?
Yeah, it's
maybe.
like, oh, I forgot about the story. Let's just rewrite it and change the originals. It was Han Solo.
Yes.
Oh.
Actually, you didn't quiz me on that one, so I mean, you could. He was wearing an Imperial Scout helmet. That's
The
why it
white
was.
helmet?
Yeah, it was really hard
Yeah.
for him to tell. I think it was black, actually.
Was it?
I don't know. All
I
right,
thought it looked like a maxi pad.
I got a good one for you that I have yet to ask either of you.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
The Emperor uses the Force to remove Luke from what?
I know. I think I know.
You think you know?
I think I know.
you can?
Yeah.
Angel,
I'm
you
gonna
got
let her go
anything?
first.
This
You
is
want me
this
to
is
go first?
this is for
Go first.
Return of the Jedi. The Emperor uses the Force to remove what from Luke?
I thought you said Luke from what?
Same thing.
No.
No.
Oh, the question says what from Luke?
Okay.
What from the...
Okay, I definitely know that one now.
Yeah.
I would say his lightsaber, but I'm probably...
Good
not-
guess.
I was going with that.
Nope. His handcuffs.
Handcuffs?
Remember? He's like,
No,
"You will not
I
be
don't
needing
remember
those." Come
handcuffs.
on. He removes his handcuffs.
Was he a fucking space cop?
Oh no, that's right. He was in handcuffs when Vader
When
brought
Vader
him to
brought
the
him to the
Emperor.
Oh,
And, yeah,
he was in handcuffs.
The Emperor was
I guess
not
that's-
threatened by Luke.
I thought you meant like he was a fucking space cop and he's
No.
got his lightsaber on one hip and his fucking handcuffs on the other.
What type of... Yeah, this is the good one I found on this card.
There's only one.
Well,
There's six.
kind of on
This is
this
not
on this
what we
card.
were looking
I think it is. I don't know anymore.
Come on, spit it out.
Okay, what type of pleasure craft does Jabba use for trips outside his
Oh,
palace?
come on. That's easy peasy lemon squeezy.
It's the stick we talked about earlier that you put in the dip.
Was it?
Yes.
You sure? Does it have a name?
Hold on, you called it dipstick?
No, I don't know. Whatever the name of the ship was that we were making fun of, I said it sounded like you needed to stick it in dip, and I wanted dill. Never mind.
I can't remember.
It was the sail barge, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Jabba's sail barge.
Oh yeah.
That Luke was getting pushed off of
Right.
into the Sarlacc.
And then our dear friend Leia chokes him out with her chain.
Alright, here's one that's pretty good. How many pilots typically man the controls of an Imperial Scout Walker? Zach, what do you...
Pairs would make
Two.
sense.
You're thinking two, Zach?
Two.
What are you thinking, Angel?
It's in the helm. I say it's
they're
two.
They're manning inside of it.
Yes,
it is
there's-
two. You got it.
Well, most planes are two.
No, it's the Scout Walker. The ATST.
Oh. Okay.
The two-legged thing on
Yeah. It was one like actually controlling it, and the other one using the guns and shooting. That would make
I
sense.
can't remember how they did
I'm
it.
not quite sure. Possibly.
Because you couldn't do both.
This is a funny one. Who asks if the name Lando refers to a star system?
I know this. This
God,
takes
you guys
place
are killing me.
in Empire.
You're killing me. My 7-year-old probably could tell you. He could just look at you and he's like, "It's this. I'm telling you right now,
But
it's this."
we're asking you.
Can I do it?
Hold
Do
on,
it.
hold on. No. She's still thinking.
Do it.
I'm not thinking.
Do
I
it.
told him I'm not good at the trivia.
Do it.
I'm good at the talking. I'm not good at the trivia.
I'm a good talker, but I can't use my brain.
No,
You gotta do a little
I
bit.
would have to remember all the intricacies, and I'm not that person.
The answer is Leia Organa.
It is.
The princess.
Yes.
Lando system? No, Lando's a man.
I actually every time I see him, I just think of Colt 45. So it's
Two
just really what it
zigzags.
boils down
Okay,
to. I
here's
love
a-
Lando, but
Here's a good
Colt
one.
45.
What is the only planet subjected to a rainstorm in the OT?
Oh, the original trilogy.
Yeah.
I that's like. Oh, in the original trilogy, Rainstorm.
I would think it would be.
This is a good one.
I know it.
Zach?
Seriously, how many times have you watched?
Dagobah.
Zach's got Dagobah. You got anything?
I'm gonna say it's Endor. Because
Endor.
it's very green and very Wookiee-y.
The forest moon of Endor.
Right. Okay. Forest Moon.
It was Dagobah.
It was Dagobah.
Dagobah.
Well, I just think lush green.
Because they were
trees,
inside
rainforest.
Yoda's house
Yeah, and there's
as it
like-
was
Oh, that's
raining.
right. It was a
And that's when
swamp.
Yoda died.
to the master later.
That's when
The
Yoda
sky
died.
cried for Yoda.
Yeah. Well, it was raining too when R2 was out there in Empire, and he's like peering through the window, but he was getting drenched on.
Oh, yeah. They left him outside like the dog.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
so sad.
You got any more?
I got one. This is a prequel question.
Oh.
Yippee.
Yay.
Yeah. Who mentions at a Jedi Council meeting that he has good relations with the Wookiees? If you don't get this, I'm gonna
Who
bitch slap you.
mentions at the Jedi Council meeting that he has good relations with the Wookiees?
I'm gonna bitch slap you if you don't
Well,
get this
Yoda
right.
was on Kashyyyk. I'm gonna guess Yoda. I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's go with our dear friend Mace Windu.
I love how she always goes like with another answer. 'Cause
Sure.
it was Yoda.
I don't want to be everybody else.
Good relations
It
I
was
have
Yoda?
with the
Let's try. I
Wookiees.
don't
Yes,
know,
it was
so I'm
Yoda.
gonna-
I don't remember that
That's why
line.
he went to Kashyyyk
I
because
don't
he
wanna
has
be
good
like you. I want
relations.
to be like me, damn
But
it.
be
All right.
Purple
correct.
sabers and shit.
You got any more? Or is that it?
Nah, that's it.
I got two questions that are highly relevant to our current thing
Well,
we
I
talked
didn't
about.
get to read any fucking questions.
Because you're the
What is this
guest.
shit? So?
We gotta quiz
Here we
you.
go, I got a whole bunch of
No,
cards.
no,
I can
no.
read. We've heard
No,
Cameron talk
no,
all night.
no.
It's my turn.
Here you
Shit.
go. Ask us questions.
And this one's gonna be fun. Let's
You want another card?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
You're gonna know all the answers. I don't know any
Yeah, I
answers.
will.
Oh, well, because you can fucking see them.
I don't.
They're upside down. I can read
need
upside
to-
down and backwards,
I
though.
don't need to read the back of the
I
card.
Let's see. Let me find one. You can read yours, and I'm.
All right, I got a good one. Which film title is spelled out in LED on the back of every clone trooper helmet,
I don't know that one.
even though it's too small to read on screen?
I know that that's been a thing. I don't know what movie it is.
Which film title is spelled out in LEDs on the back of every clone trooper's helmet, even though it was too small to be read on screen?
I don't know.
I wonder if what if it is.
I'll give you a hint. It's another Lucasfilm.
I was gonna say it's probably his first film.
Was it THX?
I bet it is.
What was that movie called?
THX
You're
1138.
It's right here. Hold on.
Zach got it. THX 1138. That's what it says on
that.
there.
Makes sense. Though.
Really?
Yeah.
He's
How about
very
that?
into himself.
That's where the inspiration came about. All right.
Sorry about the noise. That was him getting into his Trivial Pursuit Star Wars
Getting
edition.
more cards. And I got a really, really, really good question.
Is this that draft question you were so
Yes.
giddy about? I give up.
Here we go. Which
give
character
up.
in The Empire Strikes Back was called Minch in the first draft of the script?
An Empire?
An Empire.
Called Minch. Yoda?
Yes.
Really?
Yoda was called Minch.
I was trying to think of a new character introduced that would have a weird name, and Yoda was the
I
only
kinda
one.
think
That Orlando.
Yoda's way better than Minch because it almost sounds perverted.
Lucas's other concept for Yoda was named Buffy, and he'd be a monkey.
The Vampire Slayer?
No, just a monkey named Buffy.
God, that would
Walks around
be
the set
awesome.
With a lightsaber, walks around with a fucking stake, staking vampires in the heart.
Yeah, no,
Buffy,
I would love to think of Yoda as a little monkey just carrying around a lightsaber.
The reason why they didn't do it was because when they started filming it,
They didn't want to have a monkey
He
flinging
still
shit
kind
at
of
people.
looks like a monkey, though, if you think about it. Just with really whacked out ears.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick was on set, and he's like, "Don't do it. They're a pain in the ass." From 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh,
So
I
he's
bet.
like, "All right, fine. I guess I won't. I'll just do a puppet with Frank Oz."
Frank Oz is cool.
Frank Oz is awesome.
He's voiced some of the best
He's cool.
characters ever.
What else has he done other than Yoda?
He was very involved with Sesame Street. and with the Muppets.
Okay, he took
I'm
part
pretty
with
damn
Henson.
sure he was Kermit the Frog.
You know what? Let's Google it.
Let's Google it, because I'm pretty damn sure he's Kermit the Frog. He did voice characters on Sesame Street. He was very involved with it, too.
Kermit the Frog, you know?
That's right.
Hello, my name is Kermit the Frog.
That's pretty good.
And,
That's a lot better than
I have
My
to
dad-
say,
My dad used to do Fozzie Bear. Fozzie Bear, he did Fozzie Bear.
Waka Waka.
Because Fozzie Bear and he would do Yoda and they would sound exactly the same. And then we laughed about it later on because they're voiced by Frank Oz.
Right.
Both of them were. So it was just kind of funny. It's like, well, they sound alike. Well, because it was the same.
It was voiced by Jim Henson from 1961 to 1990, and then by Steve Whitmire.
Who, Kermit?
Yeah, Kermit.
Dude, I love
From
Jim
1990 to present.
I love
it was never Oz.
Kermit the
I love
Frog.
Jim
You
Henson.
guys are too young for the Muppet Show.
I love Jim
I watched
The
Henson.
Muppet
Muppets.
Show. Well, no, but back in the late 70s and early 80s, there was a show. It was called The Muppet Show.
Stop playing the age card, goddammit.
I watched it on reruns, okay?
Okay.
I have it on DVD, some of them on DVD at home, and I'll tell you right now, it's hilarious. They would have people come in and do skits. My favorite were Statler and Waldorf. They were the old guys.
Statler and
You know what I'm
Waldorf.
talking about? The old guys who'd sit up at the
Oh,
balcony
man,
and
that
just
sounds
plastic
good.
10 tons of shit.
For a car alarm.
They were my favorite. I loved them.
Which one's Statler and which one's Waldorf?
Who cares? They're funny.
Okay.
Who cares?
We're getting off
Questions.
topic. Yeah.
All right.
We're almost done, guys.
I'm
Questions.
gonna
Bear
read
with
some
us.
questions.
We're having fun now.
All right, I'm doing this one. Who allows the Millennium Falcon to escape from the Death Star with the warning, "I'm taking an awful risk, Vader. This had better work."
Tarkin.
Good job. It is Tarkin. The Grand Moff, actually.
Grand Moff.
Oh,
Tarkin.
the Moff Tarkin walked up on the
So you just say you didn't watch Rebels, and you really should, because Admiral Thrawn's pretty fucking badass.
I've known
Thrawn was
about
brought back
Thrawn
from-
because
I know,
he was
but
in
the
the
way
Dark of the
they-
Empire trilogy.
Yeah, the
But the
sequel
way
trilogy.
they animate him, he is creepy. He's
Oh, yeah,
blue,
he's a
and-
chiss.
Oh, he's cool.
He's
I
a
like
Chiss.
him.
The Chiss have been allied with the Empire since their adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
He's a bad dude.
Yes, that's my
Super
buddy's
bad
buddy's
dude.
favorite character in
That's
the whole
why
entire
I'm
Star
kind of
Wars
surprised.
universe.
I mean, you like that so much. Why haven't you guys really got into Rebels?
I don't own it, and I don't have TV.
Oh.
I had a friend who really loved Admiral Thrawn. Yeah, and so he let me. He introduced me to him, and I researched him. He's
He's cool.
Uber bad dude.
Yeah,
like him.
Thrawn's awesome.
All right, one more. I'm going to do this one, I think. Who explains to Luke Skywalker the dark side is not stronger than the Force, but is quicker, easier, and more seductive?
Yoda.
I was actually gonna say Obi-Wan, but yeah, I guess it's Yoda.
It is Yoda. But it doesn't. I mean,
Once you stumble down the
I
dark
can hear
path
Obi-Wan
forever,
that, though, too. That's
will it
very
dominate your
true.
destiny? Consume you it will, as it did Obi-Wan's apprentice.
Is that your Yoda voice?
I can't do Yoda, so that's best I got.
It was okay.
So we're out of questions. We're out of time.
Part 2.
Part 2 will be coming. Like I said, we have 2 more drafts to go through.
Now, currently we do have a live feed going. If you guys want to answer us any questions, unfortunately, no one's actually chimed in yet. So if you want to follow us on social media for the next live question session, you can follow us at Twitter at escape_pod_cast.
Same for Instagram. It's
Same for Instagram.
escape_pod_cast. You'll just look for the picture of the Death Star. It's a broken Death Star.
Yeah, the DS2. If you don't have Twitter or Instagram for some reason,
Facebook will be up soon. I wanted to make sure we got a couple episodes underway.
belt.
Yes, before I make a Facebook. So
and we actually have a request email. So if you wish to have certain questions emailed to us, you can email us at escapepodcastrequest@gmail.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Went ahead and did that.
The more you know.
I got anything else, guys?
It's a surprise.
No, I think that's it for today.
Well, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you for
You're
coming on.
welcome.
Sorry, I really suck at answering questions.
No, you're
You gonna be around for part 2?
If you guys want me back.
Hell yeah.
Sure, yeah, we want you
And
back.
I think what would be really interesting is there's a crawl for the next script, right?
Yep.
Oh, there's gonna be a crawl for every.
Crawl for every
Right,
script
right.
except the story synopsis.
So maybe it'd be really interesting to compare and contrast between the two and see how different they went, because these crawls were so different.
Compare and contrast the first crawl to the fourth crawl.
The second
No,
crawl.
the two crawls. Are you gonna do?
The second crawl.
No, not the first 2. I mean, the next 2 scripts that we're talking about next week.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really super cool to see how different those 2, because it's the final draft before the final draft, right?
Yep. That's essentially, yeah.
Essentially.
There's a lot more in there, but
Well,
it's
of
the
course.
third and the fourth draft. They use that for the film.
As we concluded, he is very schizo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Signing off. I'm Cameron Howard.
I'm Zach Fielder.
Adios, guys. Angel.
Peace.